Well, thank you, Danny, very much, and good afternoon, everybody. It's a great joy to be with you. Thank you very much indeed for inviting me. I realize, of course, that most of you did not invite me. But thank you anyway. Perhaps I need to explain why I have something of a reputation for finishing more abruptly than many preachers do. And it is very simple to explain. My approach is when it's time to quit, if you haven't finished, you just stop. And the result is identical. It's just that one is slightly more abrupt than the other. And I learned this the very first time I preached in my life. I was 17 years of age. I was pushed into preaching. I never intended to do it. And I wanted to get it over as quickly as possible. I was given the subject of the church at Ephesus. I was not even aware they had a church in Ephesus at the time. But I became highly motivated to find out all that I could about the church at Ephesus, which, of course, taught me a lesson right then that I didn't know I was learning. And that is, in the church, we usually say, if you motivate people long enough, they'll become motivated, they'll become mobilized. In my experience, it's the reverse. If you mobilize people, there's a very high probability they'll become motivated. It's called the push off the deep end policy. And then they either sink or swim, you see. And then if they sink, you jump in and pull them out. And you say, you sank. And now you've arrived at a point of total agreement. And that is where you can build something, when you arrive at a point of agreement. So on this particular occasion, I prepared my talk. It had 3 points. The only reason it had 3 points was that every preacher I'd ever heard in England up until that time had 3 points. I asked some of them why they had 3 points. None of them knew. But it was the way to do it. So I had 3 points. I got through the first one. It was a struggle. Got through the second one, got going a little bit. And then I realized not only was my time up, I'd gone over time. And I still had another point. Being inexperienced that particular time, I just said what was on my mind. And what came out was, I'm terribly sorry, I don't know how to stop. And a very helpful gentleman on the back row said to me, oh, shut up and sit down. And so that was my first lesson in preaching. And that's what I've been doing ever since. Then they amplified this a bit for me. This is for the benefit of all you budding preachers. This is what you do. He said, first of all, you study your Bible. Secondly, you stand up and tell them what it says. When you finish, you shut up and you sit down. That's it. Now, I was in a seminary one day and I said, is that basically it? I asked one of the preaching professors, is that basically it? He said, yeah, that's basically it. So I said, why do you take 4 years teaching them then? He didn't answer me. All right. Well, now, I didn't come here to say any of that to you, but I feel better. Now I've got it off my chest. Congratulations to you young people who, first of all, had a desire to learn more about discipleship. Secondly, congratulations to you not only undertaking this, but finishing it. And now you are what? Are you the finished article as far as discipleship is concerned? No, there is no such thing as the finished article when it comes to discipleship. Discipleship is not a course that you take. It's not a course from which you graduate. Discipleship is the development of a lifestyle. It is the development of a lifestyle that has a termination point. We know what the termination point is. The termination point of it is simply this, that one day you will see Jesus. And when you see Jesus, you will be like him. That's the end of the discipleship process. There'll be no need for discipleship after that. When you see him, you will be like him. At the same time, you will be given something very interesting. You'll be given a body like his resurrection body. That is why the bodily resurrection of Christ is such an important aspect of Christian theology. For the bodily resurrection of Christ is a reminder that when we die, we just do not become a disembodied spirit floating around, settling down occasionally on a cloud with a harp. But that with a new body, like Christ's resurrection body, having seen him and been like him, we will at that time become an inhabitant of something incredible. New heavens and new earth characterized by righteousness. Wow. That's where we're heading, folks. And when you finally arrive, having seen Jesus and are like him, inhabiting a body like his resurrection body, actively on the job to the glory of God in the new heavens and the new earth, you will have graduated. In the interim, of course, you have taken a very significant step in the process. For the essence of discipleship is learning. The essence of discipleship is learning. In the New Testament times, you couldn't be a disciple without having a clearly discernible teacher. The difference, of course, between Jesus and his disciples and all the other folks who were disciples of a philosopher or a teacher was this. Normally speaking, the students were free to choose their teacher. The teachers set up shop, and the students went around to see where they could get the best deal. Consumerism. Jesus didn't give us the freedom. He chose his disciples. Tap people on the shoulder, say, come here, come, follow me, and I'll make you. Come, follow me, and I'll make you. Notice that come is an invitation. Follow me is not an invitation, it's a summons. I'll make you is a promise. The three component parts of the call of Christ. Notice that the call of Christ, right from the very beginning, incorporates an invitation to relationship, coupled inextricably with a summons to discipleship. You can't separate the two. And that the essence of this discipleship which is following, the essence of it and the end product of it is, I'll make you. And that's a long process. This process is called discipleship. So you've taken a significant step on the way. Let me fill in a little more detail about this new heaven and this new earth, seeing Jesus and being like him. You know, the end product, the end of the story. Let me start with the beginning of the story, just so that we have what the Germans call a good Weltanschauung. So I thought I'd tell you that because you would have no way of knowing that I knew it unless I told you. It means a world view, Weltanschauung. This world view is absolutely critical for a disciple of Jesus. Everybody has a world view. Most of them wouldn't know it if you asked them what it is. But it's very important that a disciple does have a world view because everything fits into it. Okay? Here's the Christian worldview. that the disciple has. I've already given you the end of the story. Now let's go back to the beginning. There are 4 key words of Christian theology. Any presentation of the Christian message should in some form incorporate these 4 things. The first key word is creation. The second key word is fall. The third key word is redemption. And the fourth key word, which is actually part of the third key word, the fourth key word is glory. Creation, fall, redemption, glory. All right, say this after me just to make sure you've got it. Creation, I said after me. All right, I'll forgive you this time. All right, say it with me. Creation, fall, redemption, glory. Creation. This is, I am so excited about creation. Let me tell you why. I think most people will agree that we are here. Now you have to look for points of agreement, you see. People usually start with points of disagreement, get into an argument, and when you have an argument, one of 2 possibilities. You either win it or you lose it. That's right. If you win it, the people feel humiliated and stay out of your way. If you lose it, they say, what a dummy, and stay out of your way. You see? So arguments are usually counterproductive. All right. So you look for a point of agreement. Point of agreement, number 1. We are here. Now then, that raises a question. How in the world did we get here? 2 possibilities. It's all chance. Secondly, it is all intentional. 2 possibilities. Now, to arrive at one conclusion or the other is a step of faith. It is then predicated on something else. It's another step of faith. Some people believe that God is. The rest of people believe that God isn't. Notice they're both faith positions. Everybody is a believer. The issue is not whether you believe. Everybody believes. The only way you can operate is by a degree of trust. So you either believe that God is, you believe that God isn't. If you believe that God is, that's smart, then you probably won't have too much difficulty believing that not only God is, but I are because God is. There's some connection there, which leads inevitably to the idea then I am not a result of chance. I am not, in a sense, an accident suspended between accidents. In actual fact, I was created intentionally by an intelligent God, and he gave me a degree of intelligence that will allow me to intelligently grasp the intelligent purpose for which I was made. Wow, that's me. Intentionally made by God. That's the essence of creation. Now, of course, there are other created things around you. You've probably noticed them. And you have an affinity with them, but I rather suspect that you think that you are different from them. If you look at the things in the created order, I think you would agree with me that they fall into 3 main categories: animals, vegetables, and minerals. So I am part of the created order. We are intentional, see? So what am I? Am I an intentional mineral? Am I an intentional vegetable? Am I an intentional animal? I need to know this. It's called a worldview. See, I get a kick out of this. Anyway, you could probably tell. All right. Now, there's no question about it that our bodies are made up of minerals. We know that. Chemists will tell you that. The Bible puts it in a very simplified manner. It says that God gathered together the dust of the earth, breathed into our nostrils the breath of life. Okay, so we're minerals. So I'm just an intentional mineral, right? No, you say, no, I'm not. All right, well, then you must be a vegetable. Well, no, I'm not a vegetable. In fact, if somebody has a terrible accident and they're no longer functioning adequately, we say they're in a vegetative state. On the other hand, your mother did say, eat your veggies. Why? Because she knew that if this mineral part of you was going to operate, it needed to be stuffed with vegetable. Oh, you say, well, I'm an intentional mineral vegetable. You say, no, I'm not. Then I'm afraid you must be an animal, madam. So, well, if you really want to insult somebody, call them an animal. That doesn't help. Yes, it does help to realize that I'm an animal. I'll tell you why. If you're going to have surgery, it's a little scary. That guy is going to stand over you with a scalpel and he's going to cut you wide open. He's going to look inside. He's going to take stuff out. You see? But he's practiced, folks, on a pig. And the reason he practiced on a pig is, forgive me, madam, but there are marked similarities between you and a pig. You say, yes, but I'm not an animal. Well, what are you? You're created. All those things are created. And the answer is, I'm created. I have an affinity with the mineral, the animal, and the vegetable world, but I am none of these things. I am human. So I say, what's so special about you? And the answer is, God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. And man became a living being. You see, God breathed into you his life. And he breathed his spirit into the human spirit, for he had created you in the image of God. And that is the fundamental dimension of your worldview, because that is not only true of you, it is true of every human being you'll ever come across. That changes your view of humanity. Change your view of humanity, you've changed the view of the world you live in. That's the first key word. Second key word is fall. Now, another point of agreement I've discovered is this. Everybody that I talk to on this topic agrees with me on this. Things are not the way they ought to be. Any problems with that? Things are not the way they ought to be. People will say that universally. It's fascinating. All the different cultures, they can all give you examples of it. Things are not the way they ought to be. But rarely do people think what they're saying. If you say things are not the way they ought to be, you are assuming there is a way things ought to be. If there is a way things ought to be and things are not the way they ought to be, guess what? There's a huge gap. And do you know what we call that? The fall. Nothing is the way it ought to be, including me, including you, including every aspect of me. My body is not the way it ought to be. It's gradually disintegrating. Paul he put it rather nicely. He said, our body is like an old tent that's been dismantled. I just lost a few more pegs than you. You see, that's part of the fall. My mind does not grasp everything perfectly. It doesn't have that capacity. Not only is it limited in how much it can grasp, it doesn't have the ability to grasp what it does grasp perfectly. And then that is exacerbated by the fact that my emotions are not what they should be either. So I desire things that I shouldn't. Which leads, of course, to my will. And my will is sometimes a won't. And if my mind and my emotions and my will are not what they ought to be, and my body is less than it should be, it's no surprise that I'm a bit of a mess. And I look at my world and I say, this world is a mess. And I say, and I know why. because everybody in it was created and is fallen. It's called the worldview. And the third key word is redemption. And if we're going to put redemption in a nutshell, it is this. It is God leaning out of heaven, looking at this world of ours and saying, that's my world. And I want it back. And turning to his son and saying, son, go get it. And that leads to something wonderful that we call the incarnation. It is God assuming our humanity, becoming incarnate, embodied. What incarnate means literally. Christ, the invisible one, becoming embodied, so that he can demonstrate to humanity in language humanity can read and understand what God is like and what humanity is called to be. And he came, and in his life, he taught us by word and by deed. He taught us what God is like, and he taught us what humanity was intended to be. And in so doing, he reminded us of the immensity of our fall, and he came and he said, I have come to roll back the consequences of the fall. And that is the essence of redemption. The essence of redemption is that God is relentlessly, inexorably rolling back the consequences of the fall in 1,001 dimensions, until in the end, the whole of the created order will see its fallenness rolled back, and the net result will be the fourth key word, glory. New heavens and new earth, populated by redeemed people through the blood of Christ, who have been raised with Christ in newness of life, and after death have been ushered into his presence, and when they've seen him, they are like him, and they are then granted the privilege of bodies like his resurrection body, as ideally suited to the new heavens and the new earth, as the bodies, our fallen bodies, are ideally suited to living in this present world. You know, our bodies are absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. I was just talking to my son over lunch, and he was telling me that he'd had some checkups with the doctor, and the doctor had been checking on his on his blood. And as he checked on his blood, he was checking on his cholesterol. And I said, oh yeah, we have bad cholesterol and good cholesterol. He said, yeah, that's what they used to say. They've now found that there are 18 different kinds of cholesterol. 18 different kinds of cholesterol, for crying out loud. And now they're able to examine all, and they know exactly what all 18 do. And they know exactly what they don't do, and they know exactly how they can go wrong, and they know exactly how you can put it right. And that's only one tiny little bit of who we are. What an incredible thing it is to think that this body of ours, ideally suited to this world in which we live, is a poor reflection of the resurrection bodies, ideally suited to the new heaven and the new earth, which is the end of the story. So the Christian worldview is something that will affect your view on the world in which you live, the community of which you're a part, the people you meet. It will affect every aspect of your own being. In fact, it will touch every dimension of your life. And here you are, disciples of Jesus. And you know that you are in process. Having started out created, having discovered you have fallen, having entered into the process of redemption and bound for glory, And you know you're part of the grand narrative. And you have the incredible privilege of going out into this creation, fallen, redeemable, eternally redeemable, to the point of eternal glory. You have the privilege of going out into this world and telling them, let me tell you about the grand narrative. But in order to have some credibility, you'll need to show them that you're in the process of redemption and give them a little taste of glory to come. Congratulations. God bless you.